All right, guys, like the video, subscribe, and comment for the sake of growing the channel before you watch this. I appreciate it. But today we're going to react to Ryan Dengler, 700-pound deadlift. I'm going to go over some of his footage from Collegiate Nationals as well, which was a couple weeks ago, about a month ago. But to start the video out, let's take a look at it, what I think as far as his numbers and his natural status. So he's 22 years old, first competition, November of 2019. Last competed a month ago, March 2022, so 2.5 year span. One of the first things I'm going to look at is his body weight. Typically, someone on cycle or someone who's taking gear, you're going to see a pretty big jump in their body weight at some point in time over a very short period of time. So outside of puberty or someone in their teens, you're not going to see these huge jumps in body weight. But if someone was in puberty and growing, you could see that. Otherwise, someone in their 20s, I'm not going to see like these drastic jumps in body weight. It's just not going to happen. So anytime I see like a 20-pound jump in body weight, 30-pound, like automatic red flag as far as them being on gear, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to gain body weight. I think I went from 230 all the way up to like 250, 255 when I got on gear. So 20, 25-pound swing. Now I'm back down to 225. You see what I'm saying? So as far as he's concerned, his body weight has fluctuated from 227 to 237, 10-pound range. Nothing there is a red flag as far as I'm concerned. He's kind of gone back and forth, but he's always been in this consistent 10-pound range, which, adds up as far as him being natural. Now, squat's gone up 50 pounds in 2.5 years. Comes out to 20 pounds a year progression. Nothing crazy at all there as far as something we'd see from an unnatural lifter. Like, there'd be a much bigger gain than that. Like, squat might go from 573 to 700. But even that, this isn't anything at all where I red flag it. So I'm not worried about that. 623 squat at 233 is a very good squat. Not elite in the sense that it's at the upper echelon of like what we see in the USAPL, but he's a very strong lifter. Now let's go over to his bench here in the middle. Bench 352 all the way up to 402 in the span of a year. Might raise an eyebrow, 50-pound gain naturally. But really, I look at the consistency over the last couple of years. His bench would not stagnate like this as far as 391. It would have jumped for sure. So his bench has really been pretty stagnant the last year and a half from December 2020 up to now. So again, even though there's the 50-pound jump, bench also as a natural lifter can fluctuate a lot more. You'll have periods where bench will digress quite a bit, and then periods where it'll take off. That's not uncommon. Whereas on gear, you're going to see like a consistent jump every training cycle like you see with John Hack right now. He's on gear obviously now, and his bench keeps jumping every training cycle. So we would see that here as well. So, and then when I look at his squat numbers, it all adds up. Nothing's weird. Deadlift has only gone up 17 pounds, 656 up to 672. Now, I will say the 672, we'll show it in the video, is very easy. He definitely could have done more than that at the meet, but his deadlift hasn't jumped anything crazy as well. So overall, despite the guy's crazy physique, despite that blood work video that came out, I think a few months ago, where he had the wacky testosterone numbers. His testosterone was like 600, his total testosterone, but his free test was below 10, which is very strange because if you look at like a parallel to my comparison, as far as mine, I could have like a 365 test level, I think on my last one, but my free test was 10. So my free test was actually a little higher than his, but his total test was much higher than mine. So that's kind of wonky. But if I'm solely going off, and then the other thing with his blood work on that one video, as far as his liver enzymes were very high. So that was kind of strange as well. And even his creatinine was a little high. So there were some red flags as far as the blood work video. But if I'm going off just this body of work, guys, solely this body of work, I would say he's natural. These numbers, like I said, the body weight would have gone up to a much more significant extent. His squat for sure would have gone up more than this. His squat would be closer to 700. And his bench for sure would have been, you'd probably see it like 463, 485 range, if not higher. And the deadlift as well. So really, I do think he's natural. Derek, from More Plates, More Dates, has a much better breakdown of his blood work as far as why it was a little wonky. But just going off of his numbers from this standpoint, I'd say he's natural. Let's react, though, to his 700-pound deadlift here. I don't know who this guy is, who he's with, but this guy, look, freak leverages. This is Kaylor Woolham level leverages. Like, this is just bonkers. Like, let's go back here. Let's watch this again. Watch the quad angle. The quad angle at the start is crazy. So his quad's not quite, but they're almost there about 30 degrees with the floor, which is almost parallel as far as the angle on sumo goes. So this is pretty ridiculous leverages. I don't know who this guy is. He's got super long arms. He's literally built to sumo deadlift. Like, this is the best leverages you could have for sumo deadlift. So just ridiculous. I've got a cold, so bear with me here. Yeah, I don't know who that guy is, but he's got crazy proportions. Let's fast forward a little bit. So Ryan, here he is pulling 405. Let's take a look at that again. So right away, I'm not crazy about his setup because, in my opinion, I know what he's doing here. Let's go through what he's doing, what he's trying to do. We'll get back to the beginning a little more. Let's even go back a little further to get his whole setup in here. Right there. He's trying to push his shoulders and traps down to the bar to make his arms more tight. So he's trying to get tension through his arms here. They're going to be taut. He's pushing his shoulders down. You can see this to create that tension. He's trying to lock his lats in and upper back. So I understand the setup here. I've played around with this myself over the years, obviously. This is closer to the setup I used when I pulled 920. But this setup has a drawback as far as losing speed off the floor. When you're that neutral of a back position, you do not generate as much force and speed off the ground. Let's look at this guy. This guy is crazy. Like, these leverages, just insane. Like, I can't believe he can get in position like that. This is just, and look at this. Look at the toe angle, 45-degree toe angle. Thighs almost parallel with the floor. It's completely upright, like just crazy leverages. Here's Ryan again. You'll see his setup. Lowering himself slowly, get that tension in through the lats. But I really don't like this setup for conventional. It's too finesse. Conventional benefits from more aggression. You want that speed. Speed is the name of the game with conventional as far as getting it moving. So I would go with a more aggressive style setup, as we'll get into a little later. Easy. Obviously, it's moving well, though. I'm not saying this form is bad. I just think it could be tweaked a little. Look at this. Look at where his freaking quad angle is when he lowers himself to grab the bar. Then he pulls the slack out, and he's so upright. He's not as upright as like a Dan Grigsby, but this is pretty amazing. Snaps the hips through easy. 545 right there. That's pretty impressive. So I don't know who that guy is, but he's definitely not Natty. No, I'm just kidding. He's definitely Natty. See, Ryan's built, but I really don't think, based on his numbers, that he's not natural. 585 here. He also takes his air at the top. I would prefer to see him take his air at the bottom, truthfully. I think taking his air at the top and lowering himself that slowly is slowing down his initial pull. See, I wonder what this guy's competition pull is, because he gets a lot out of the deadlift bar and the sumo stance. Or the pound plates, I should say. So with the sumo stance, sumo lifters can often get more of a carryover from going from like a stiff bar on calibrated plates to a deadlift bar with pound plates, because they can get even more upright because they get that slack out and it gets a lot more bend in the bar. So that guy probably pulls way more under these conditions than he does on calibrated plates on a stiff bar. Whereas Ryan, he's not going to pull as much under these conditions by comparison. So, like, what I'm trying to say is the other guy who pulls sumo, he's going to get a much bigger carryover from this than Ryan is, from their competition lifts to this training type setup, because of his proportions and leverages and his setup. 635 here. Let's see how this goes. Easy enough. He's got a lot more. So what I'm saying is, this guy under a stiff bar and calibrated plates would probably pull a lot less, because he's getting much better bar bend. This helps his proportions a lot as far as his style of pull. But he's freakishly strong. 635. I don't know what he weighs, but that's ridiculous, because he looks like he's pretty light. This is the 700, I believe. Let's see how this goes. See, there's just adjustments I'd like to make with this. I don't like taking the air at the top because I understand why he's doing it. Like, I understand his whole setup. His whole setup is to maximize how tight he can get before the pull. Like, I totally get that. Everything about it. He's maximizing his tightness through his core, through his upper back. My argument would be he would get a little more speed, more power off the floor if he actually went with a more rounded back style, more aggressive, little more grip and rip. He's so finesse now. He's very slow, finesse, calculated. I'd like to see him almost get his stance set, run up to the bar pretty quick, get his stance set. Don't take much time, grab the bar and fire because he's going to get a lot more explosiveness off the floor. He is definitely sacrificing explosiveness by pulling like this. Now, if you sacrifice explosiveness to stay tight with that neutral back position, you have a stronger lockout. But this guy doesn't seem to have any problems with lockout. So I would say with conventional, getting that explosiveness off the floor is the most important part. Whereas with sumo, getting maximum tension is more important. So in his case, I'd like to see more aggression. I'd like to see him take his air at the bottom, and I'd like to see him do a little more rounded back style of pull. I think he would actually pull more. Based on that, he might have 725 in him, 715, but pretty impressive stuff. This guy is 675. Look at that. Look at the angle of his legs. It's just absurd. So his weakness is off the floor because he's maximized his technique. His technique, this guy is so efficient that he's going to fail off the ground. How would he get that stronger? I would say the number one assistance movement he could do is one plate deficit deadlifts with a conventional stance because sumo lifters benefit big time from the crossover to conventional. I have my sumo deadlifters train conventional because it brings up their sumo. The reason being his low back and hamstrings are the weak point here as far as getting the bar off the ground. He's maximized his leverages. He's maximized his form, but he needs to get stronger off the ground. But how does he do that? Low back and hamstrings. So for this guy, one plate deficit conventional deadlifts would be the key. Maybe some 45-degree back raises we could throw in as well to really get that strength kicking because the 45-degree back raises are going to hammer the hamstrings. But overall, impressive stuff. I don't know who this is. He's very impressive. Let's go to Ryan's meet here. So this was the aforementioned recent meet from March, 1686 total, by way of a 623 squat, 391 bench, and 672 deadlift. Right away here, let's watch again. Easy. Now, he at least had 688, maybe 694, maybe 700, maybe. But again, especially on the stiff bar and the calibrated plates, I think he would benefit from less of a finesse setup, more aggression, a little more backgrounding, and getting his air at the bottom. That's just my opinion. But he's sacrificing a lot of speed off the floor like this. And obviously, if he rounded a little bit and was more aggressive, it would affect his lockout. But I think he's strong enough he could power through and that the trade-off would be worth it. So I prefer to just see him like not sink the hips so much, get the hips a little higher, shoulders a little more over the bar. It's just too methodical here. It's slowing him down. It's somewhat taking away from his explosiveness. Like that was too methodical. That was too finesse. He needs to speed it up. He needs to be more deliberate, more aggressive. The conventional deadlift is an aggressive lift. You really have to attack the bar. That speed off the floor is the key to powering through a big conventional deadlift. So either way, though, this was easy enough. Definitely at 688, 694, maybe 700. But you may say, okay, he did 700 if he can do 700 on the stiff bar on calibrated plates, why can't he do more than 700 on the deadlift bar with palm plates? Now, I think he could pull 715, 725 in the video with the deadlift bar, but there is a bit of a learning curve for a conventional lifter, especially as far as honing in the whip of a deadlift bar with pound plates. You're going to get a ton of whip with pound plates, a ton more than what you see here with calibrated. Calibrated plates are much harder to break off the floor. You don't have to worry about whip. You have to worry about whip with pound plates, especially on a deadlift bar. So for him to like acclimate to the whip, that would take time. So his deadlift would explode up if he trained consistently on the deadlift bar with pound plates. But there is a big learning curve as far as acclimating to it if you go from this situation with the stiff bar calibrated plates to that situation. That's why it's not as significant as like the sumo guy where he's going to get a massive carryover from this because his setup is more based on getting tight. This is where Ryan as well, his setup benefits more on the deadlift bar with pound plates. So his methodical, tight setup, that is more benefit if you were to always lift on pound plates and the deadlift bar. But I would make the argument on a stiff bar and calibrated plates, he would do much better with being aggressive, having a little more backgrounding. But that's just my opinion. And if you guys like this video, let me know. I'll keep videos like this coming. I appreciate it. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment.